StoneZONE with legendary Republican strategist and political icon and pundit Roger Stone. Stone has served as a senior campaign aide to 3 Republican presidents. He is a New York Times best-selling author and a longtime friend and advisor of President Donald Trump. As an outspoken libertarian, Stone has appeared on thousands of broadcasts, spoken at countless venues, and lectured before the prestigious Oxford Political Union and the Cambridge Union Society. Due to his 4+ decades in the political and cultural arena, Stone has become a pop culture icon. And now, here's your host, Roger Stone.
Ladies and gentlemen, Troy Smith here, filling in for the legendary Roger Stone on this beautiful Wednesday, October 30th. I want to thank you for tuning in and making the last 2 shows so special, as we've unveiled some unbelievable, shocking evidence about the nation of Iran and their influencers in the United States. We did that on Monday. And then yesterday, we ran through the news, Roger and I, and had a great time doing so. Unfortunately, Roger's feeling a little under the weather today, but I can confirm that he will be back in the Stone Zone tomorrow. I want to start off this show, of course, with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Roger Stone, who delivered a speech just a few days ago. We want to roll that speech where he talks about this election, what it means for this country, and the stakes that we are going to be presented with in just 6 days. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I am Troy Smith, your host for today, filling in for Roger. Here's Roger's speech, and when we come back, we'll be rolling through the top news items of the day. So enjoy this Roger speech, and I'll be back with you in just a few minutes. Let's roll that now.
This gentleman has been a friend of MAGA. He's been a friend of President Trump. And believe me when I tell you, he is a friend of each and every one of you. And you know why? Because Roger Stone did nothing wrong. Roger!
Thank you very much. So a man goes into a bookstore and he goes to the proprietor and he says, I want to get Donald Trump's new book on immigration. And the proprietor says, get the hell out of here and don't come back. The guy says, yeah, that's the name of it. It is a great privilege for me to be here with you today, and even more precisely tomorrow, in what is going to be the biggest, greatest Trump boat parade in American history. I attended and was honored to be included in the boat parade that my good friend Carlos Garvidia put on in 2020. It was right after my wife had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I'm happy to report to you that thanks to the healing power of Jesus Christ, she is now 3.5 years cancer-free. I think her malady was triggered by the stress of the 2.5-year struggle with a corrupt foreign government that was prosecuting me, not because I had done anything wrong, not because I had lied under oath about Russian collusion that never even existed, but because they wanted to pressure me into testifying falsely against the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln, Donald J. Trump. I don't think, unless you know him, you can really appreciate how tough Donald Trump is. Yes, he's got a friendly, funny, easygoing exterior. If he hadn't been in real estate or American politics, I think he could have been a stand-up comedian. He's that funny. But look, I worked for former President Richard Nixon. As many of you know, he gave me my start. I have a tattoo of Nixon on my back about the size of a grapefruit right between my shoulders. Means I'm the only guy you know with a dick on the front and the back. But it's there as a reminder, because Nixon's story is a story of persistence. It's a story of resilience. It's an American story. He was a very tough guy. I worked for Senator Bob Dole. for 2 years in the Senate. He would have been a great president. At age 91, during the 2016 election, he insisted on being driven around Kansas and Nebraska to campaign for the Trump ticket, while the Bushes headed for the tall grass. It was an honor to work for him, but neither one of them is as tough as Donald Trump. I say that because it's going to take extraordinary toughness. Now that the president has a little more Washington experience and he understands exactly how it works, and he understands exactly who the good guys and the bad guys are, we could be looking forward to an age of reform, an age of prosperity, an age of peace, an age of safety in terms of our neighborhoods and our communities like America has never seen. Indeed, we are on the cusp of a second American revolution to bring this country back. People, of course, asked me how I feel about the upcoming election. I'm a veteran of 13 national presidential campaigns. I study the polls religiously. I base my opinions on facts, not what I want to see, not my desire. Yes, I think the race is close. It shouldn't be close because our opponent has no substance and no qualifications. And it's amazing that the party that's constantly whining about democracy, there was no democracy whatsoever in her selection as the Democrat nominee. She is the candidate of the bosses. She's the candidate of Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and the Democratic machine, because they recognize that, well, Joe was around the bend. I notice now that Joe's not too happy about being pushed out. So when he was seen wearing a Trump hat, when he was seen posing with those kids wearing Trump t-shirts, when he rushed to the White House press office, room, first time he's ever been there during his presidency, that was to beat Kamala to the punch in announcing that he, Joe Biden, had settled the longshoremen's strike. She had nothing to do with it. And now we know that President Biden is working with Governor DeSantis to deal with the hurricane-related issues here, something Kamala Harris has nothing to do with. So there are divisions in their party where our party is more united than it's ever been. But there's something much bigger and more important going on here. It is a national political realignment. You see, the old Democrat Party, the party of John F. Kennedy, the party of Harry Truman, the party that was anti-communist, the party that believed in capitalism and free enterprise, the party that believed in a strong national defense, the party that believed in sound money. That party no longer exists. The expression moderate Democrat is not an oxymoron, it's a contradiction. We have a realignment now in which common sense Democrats and independents like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., like Tulsi Gabbard, like Rod Blagojevich, they're supporting Donald Trump. And they're supporting him for three huge reasons. Number one, this nomination, this administration has us on the cusp of World War III in two different theaters of the world. Yes, Donald Trump is the peace candidate. Yes, I've known him 45 years. When he tells you he can solve the issues in the Middle East and between Russia and Ukraine, you can take that to the bank. Secondarily, the Kennedy Democrats and the Tulsi Gabbard independents, they agree with us when it comes to the fundamental question of the issue of free speech. Yeah, folks, you can find me on X, used to be known as Twitter. I'm Roger J. Stone Jr., Roger J. Stone Jr. I invite you to follow me there. Don't look for me on Facebook, folks. I'm banned for life. Don't look for me on Instagram. I'm banned for life. Don't look for me on TikTok. I'm banned for life, although in that case it's good because I don't want the communist Chinese to know everything that's in my cell phone. We have a realignment. Those who favor war, the Cheneys, the McCains, the little Adam Kinzingers, they can go with Kamala. That doesn't win them any votes. Vice President Dick Cheney took this nation to a totally unnecessary war in which tens of thousands of Americans died and hundreds of thousands of Iraqis died. But his Halliburton stock went up and he made a fortune. So they are the party of war. They're the party of censorship. They are the party of authoritarianism. We are the new Republican Party. Under Donald Trump, we've become the party of working class Americans. We become the party of common sense. When Donald Trump was elected in 2016, they said, oh, there's going to be a stock market crash. There's going to be World War III. No, he gave us the most robust economy in our history. He started no new wars. He brought back tens of thousands of troops from the Middle East, but without the countries they were leaving collapsing behind them, because he used the sophisticated drone technology that you and I paid for to keep the Taliban pinned down. I trust one man to save this country, and folks, he is on his way back. But no one here in Florida should take this election for granted. There are constitutional amendments on the ballot that are designed to bring out more Democrats or Democrat-leaning voters, and that is a concern. But the greatest concern is overconfidence. Oh, I live in Florida. It's in the bag. Nothing is in the bag. Nothing is done until they declare him the winner in the Sunshine State. So every single individual here needs to recognize that. Go through your own phone list. Go through your own Christmas card list. There are people you know, people in your family, people who are in your circle who may not be planning to vote. They need to vote. If everybody votes, we'll be headed to one of the greatest victories in American political history, and Donald Trump will make this country great again. God bless you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Roger Stone, better than ever. And to see him up close in this election cycle, continuing the tradition that he started when he was working for President Richard Nixon in 1972, to see that carry all the way through to the 80s, where he was the first person really to recommend that Trump run for president, to really seriously counsel Trump in doing so, to see that become what it has from 2016 through now. Is really spectacular, and we just love Roger here in the Stone Zone, and I love those speeches too. If you ever need a public speaker, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to try to get Roger Stone, because he's about as good as they get it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just 6 days away from potentially the most consequential election in U.S. history. It's no doubt that Americans are really paying attention to what's going on in the political realm. And if you're paying attention on the right, you're seeing President Trump march into territory that usually, Republican candidates wouldn't touch. We saw over the last weekend President Trump hold a rally at Madison Square Garden, and Roger Stone obviously was there. We showed pictures of Roger there just yesterday and talked to him about it. He described it as one of the most unbelievable experience that he's had in the 45-plus year career that he's had in politics. And I think coming from Roger, that's such a special thing, because he's seen so much. To see Madison Square Garden packed by a Republican, just days away from, like I said, the most consequential election in U.S. history. Like I said, no small feat at all. But the left's reaction to this rally is not that President Trump pulled a full crowd at a venue that's in one of the darkest blue areas in the entire country. It was not that he had a slate of speakers that included former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, the former Democrat Party vice chair, who has now declared that she's switched to Republican. She has changed her affiliation to Republican. She's left the Democrat Party a few years ago. She became an independent. And now in 2024, she has become a Republican. They didn't cover that. They didn't cover the fact that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., really the lone Kennedy left of, very close to the tree there of John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy. RFK Jr., a Democrat of the highest order, a Kennedy, speaking at this rally. And the focus instead of the realignment in this country that's going on, that we're going under right now, with Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and other traditional Democrats joining forces with President Trump and the MAGA movement, instead of covering that, our media, really echoing Vice President Kamala Harris, has focused on a single comedian's dumb joke about the nation of Puerto Rico. Now, there have been sycophantic Democrat operatives on media 24/7 since this has happened, claiming that Hispanic voters are leaving in droves from the MAGA movement and that President Trump has no chance with Hispanics anymore. We played yesterday some bozo on MSNBC actually having the gall to say that Trump has no chance with Hispanic Americans. But what I find interesting, folks, is that the threshold for failure with Trump with Hispanic voters is still higher than any percentage of voters ever received, Hispanic voters ever received by a Republican candidate. So even though they claim, Trump's damaged goods, he can't possibly do well with Hispanics, even at the lower levels that they claim he is, which I don't really believe that Hispanics were offended by this comedian. He's very obviously a comedian. It's not like he was a politician up there talking about policy. This is a guy that was making jokes, and he made a few jokes that were in bad taste. We're not going to sit here and defend what he said, but at the same time, we have to realize that it's comedy, and this was entertainment, one portion of entertainment in an entire rally that was filled with political speeches. Notice they don't talk about the political speeches because in order to talk about the political speeches, they would have to allude to the political realignment. As I said, many former Democrats attended this rally. Now, Kamala Harris is making the blitz right now to try to steamroll her way to the finish line in this election. Now, she didn't receive a single vote in the Democrat primaries. She didn't receive one single vote of support until Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and the rest of the elitists within the Democrat establishment decided that she would be the successor to Joe Biden, who had been voted on and voted for by 70% of the Democrat primary voters. 70% of the Democrat primary voters had their candidate ripped away from them without really reason other than the Democrat establishment, the political establishment in D.C., thought that President Joe Biden stood no chance against former President Donald Trump, and that the only way that this group of people, both Republican and Democrat, could control the presidency to the extent that they have under the Biden administration, in order to prevent Trump from going back to the White House, that they would have to replace Joe Biden. And they decided, in their wisdom, that Kamala Harris would be the successor, the same Kamala Harris that got less than 3% of the vote in the Democrat primary just a few years ago. Kamala Harris, who was one of the more unpopular members of the U.S. Senate when she was a senator, who has the most liberal record to date ever by a senator in the Senate. And trust me, folks, they've done everything to cover that up. And we'll be getting to a little bit more of that later. But I want to play this clip from Kamala Harris's, one of her rallies just today, where she is actually criticizing former President Donald Trump and saying that Trump believes, now this is unbelievable, Trump believes that the people he is opposing politically, the people that oppose him politically, are the enemy. And Kamala Harris says that Donald Trump wants to put them in jail. Yes, the same Kamala Harris who has overseen the prosecution of grandmothers and grandfathers in the January 6th things, where they take people who walked inside the ropes and were ushered into the Capitol by police officers, and they put them in jail, they put them in solitary confinement, they torture them, they beat them, they starve them, and there's even reports that some of them have been poisoned with their food. They're being fed mold, they're being fed bugs, they're being fed disgusting things. These people are being treated worse than anything we've seen since the Russian gulags, and this is all under Kamala Harris. But she says that it's Donald Trump that's going to put people in jail if he were to be elected. This is Saul Alinsky 101, rules for radicals. They accuse you exactly of what they are doing. Kamala Harris and Merrick Garland and Joe Biden, they are the people who lock up their political opponents. They are the people who have waged a war against former President Trump through the Justice Department. They are the people who raided Mar-a-Lago with a kill order that could have set this country into total civil war. They are the people that refused to give Secret Service protection to RFK Jr. until somebody took a shot at Donald Trump. They are the people that refuse to have accountability within the Secret Service for failures that could have cost the former president his life. These are the people, the Democrats are the people that have put lives in danger over politics, yet they claim that if Trump were to win, he would institute some kind of politicized system where the enemy of the opposition is punished. That's what we're living in right now, with Republicans in jail who did nothing wrong, and them trying to put Donald Trump and his supporters in jail for nothing. Let's roll that clip of the lying Kamala Harris at her rally today.
You know, see, this is the thing, because we know we're actually fighting for a democracy. And unlike Donald Trump, I don't believe people who disagree with me are the enemy. He wants to put them in jail. I'll give them a seat at the table. And I pledge to be a president for all Americans and to always put country above party and self.
So just keep in mind, folks, when she says she's going to give them a seat at the table, she's talking about Iran. She's talking about the enemies of the United States. This woman wants people, like we outlined in the show on Monday, people within the United States that have explicit reasons to support the Iranian regime over there, to leak secrets, to leak attacks that Israel is going to take against places like in Hamas and against Hezbollah. They leak stuff like that. Kamala Harris wants those people to remain in power. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why do the Democrats seem so hell-bent on making sure that people that serve the interest of China, people that serve the interest of Iran, people that serve the interests of other nations within our own government are protected? Why on earth would she want that? I think we have to ask that question, and it's a legitimate question. Yet if you ask that question, the mainstream media will immediately label you as some kind of conspiracy theorist. They'll tell you that you're out of your mind, and we look at some of the other clips from that Kamala Harris rally we just showed you there. They've gone into this total lunacy like Roger predicted, where they will say, Trump's going to take away your Medicaid. Trump's going to take away your Medicare. He's going to take away your Social Security. I believe we have a clip of that. Let's roll that. This woman is out of her mind. He has proposed none of these things. Let's roll that.
And my plan will lower the cost of childcare, cut taxes for small businesses, and lower health care costs, because I believe health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. On the other hand, Donald Trump's answer to the financial pressures you face is the same as last time. another $1 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires and big corporations. And this time, he will pay for it with a 20% Trump national sales tax on everyday basic necessities, which will cost the average American family nearly $4,000 more a year. On top of that, you will pay even more if Donald Trump finally gets his way and ends the Affordable Care Act, which will throw, if he were to win, which would throw millions of Americans off their health insurance and take us back to when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. You remember what that was like? Well, we are not going back. We are not going back.
You know, folks, we have to laugh and keep in mind, one of the biggest blunders that this campaign, the Kamala Harris campaign, has made was the choice of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as the running mate. And that decision was made because Barack Obama tapped Kamala Harris on the shoulder and told her that selecting Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro as her vice president would cost her the states of both Michigan and Minnesota in the general election due to those states' high percentage of Muslims that live there. And we saw in the Democrat primary that over 100,000 Michigan Democrats voted against President Joe Biden because of his pro-Israel policies, which, you know, probably a little misguided there. But the point is, they have a problem with the way that President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have handled the Israel situation. And regardless of how you feel about either side of that conflict, that's a problem for the Democrats, especially in a state like Michigan, where usually you would not see things like 10,000 votes, you know, usually 10,000, 20,000, 60, 50,000 at the max. That's going to be the separation between the winner and the loser. When you talk about 100,000 Democrats, if 100,000 Democrats stay home for 2024 in Michigan, Donald Trump will win the state. It's not even a question. It's just, you know, the balance of the voter registrations and the balance of power there in Michigan. So they have a big problem when it comes to Israel, Hamas, Muslims. But the point is, Tim Walz was picked because Barack Obama tapped Kamala Harris on the shoulder. And that, like I said, was one of the worst decisions that she could have made from the very beginning. And we see Josh Shapiro, who was, like I said, passed over, probably a little angry about that. I can't imagine he's happy about it. He's popping up again and again. Now, there's a lot of questions about Josh Shapiro and his life of covering up some really nefarious crimes and a lot of things where people ask, why is this happening? He pops up again and again. We have a clip of him during this interview where he says that Donald Trump is trying to create the other in our society. Donald Trump is trying to divide us. Meanwhile, keep in mind, these are the people who this week claim that Madison Square Garden, the place where Elvis Presley recorded one of his best live albums, where Bruce Springsteen has played over and over again, where Billy Joel has played like every weekend for the last 50 years, the same Madison Square Garden that's been utilized by artists and politicians in the Democrat Party for years and years and years. These are the same people who sat back and, because Trump had a rally there, claimed that it was a Nazi rally, that it was some weird recreation of some Nazi American rally, which has no basis in reality. The two things have nothing to do with each other. Nothing whatsoever. It would be like saying that Hitler walked on this patch of earth and so did you, so that makes you a Nazi. I mean, that's the level of insanity that we're talking about with these people. We saw Shapiro spouting this off, just really hypocritical stuff from the Pennsylvania governor. Let's roll that.
I think the Republicans do that. I think what Democrats are doing a far better job of, and I think you're seeing it more and more in this campaign, is treating all people with respect, no matter what you look like, where you come from, who you love or who you pray to. Look, that's one of the biggest beefs I have with Donald Trump. I mean, he is always trying to create others in our society, separating people out. You talked about this in your opening. When you start separating it out one person because they live in this community or they worship a certain way, you make everyone less safe. you limit the possibility of not just them, but of all Americans.
Keep in mind, folks, this guy, while he may look like a doofus, basically, you have to keep in mind he has control of a lot of stuff in Pennsylvania, and particularly with the sheriffs, particularly at a state level. Josh Shapiro could end up playing a huge role in who eventually wins the state of Pennsylvania. And we don't have to tell you. You look at the activities of Scott Pressler. You look at the activities of somebody like the great Cliff Maloney and the Pennsylvania Chase, the PA Chase. And those guys, they are showing that Pennsylvania really is the battleground for this election. And we have to keep in mind that Josh Shapiro, the Democrats, those people, they're going to be up to some no good. That's for sure, folks. They're going to be up to no good come election day. And we saw what they did in 2020. My question to those election integrity experts, there's a lot of them out there who are very truthful about this and say, not much has changed. But for those who are saying that something has changed, those saying that we may have something different, you may have a case in the case of people like Cliff Maloney. You may have a case in the case of people like Scott Pressler. But these people have been working for a while now. The truth is that when we get down to the nuts and bolts of our election system, we get down to really how they operate, how they work. As I've stated here, I think a lot of misdirection is in use here by people in power that don't want us to truthfully get to the bottom of why our elections don't seem to add up, why our elections don't seem to make any sense, and why they don't seem to have any correlation to the people who actually do the voting. And I think it starts with the machines. There are a lot of people out there who would tell you that if we just went to hand paper counted ballots, we'd be fine. And the truth is that wouldn't change anything. Because even if you did take away, let's say, for instance, you took away all the machines, you took away all the mail-in ballots, and the system remained the same as it is right now, but every single person had to fill out a paper ballot. Well, what would happen in that case is the paper ballots would be put through a scanner. And every time the ballots would be scanned, a computer image would be generated. Those computer images would then be used in a program to determine the election results. You see what I mean? So it doesn't matter if the ballot comes in through the mail. It doesn't matter if the ballot comes in through a pixie fairy. The ballot gets scanned and becomes a computer image. That's the problem. And I think they want us focused on the voting machines themselves. They want us thinking that the system is easily hacked. They want us thinking that we are being toyed with by a foreign nation, when in actuality, the people who did this, the people who rigged the elections, are the internal election personnel at a statewide and local level that are protected by both the Republican and the Democrat Party. And I think this gets to the heart of our election integrity issues in this country. There's a whole swath of people out there who will not admit to themselves that we couldn't have stolen elections if it weren't for corrupt Republicans. There are people out there who would have you believe that all of the problems that we have as far as election integrity concerned are from Democrats. That's not the case. In fact, the real culprits in all of this, look at Maricopa County with the Republicans out there and how they've been dealing with elections over the last couple of years. The Republicans are the ones, the establishment Republicans, who have really made this possible. If they had backbone, if they had the guts to stand up to lawlessness, if they had the guts to cut off their own gravy train and to stand up for what was right in this country, we would have no election fraud, ladies and gentlemen, but they don't. They have no morals, they have no backbone, they have no spine, and they have no intention of ever doing the right thing unless they are literally forced to. And I think Roger's exactly right. There's going to be a push by the people in power to get members of the MAGA movement to become violent in the aftermath of the election, no matter what happens, whether Trump wins, whether Trump loses. Violence is their goal, because in the end, that is what will allow them to clamp down on our freedoms even harder. I think as we move forward, folks, we have to get a lot smarter as far as how we approach things as a party. The Republican Party has far too many individuals within it at both a government level and at a volunteer level that don't have the best interests of our country at heart. They don't have the best interest of our party at heart, and they surely don't care about making America great again. And they surely don't care about improving the lives of the everyday Americans, of which they purport to care so much about. They would rather scam. They would rather lie. They would rather destroy this country than to really be honest with themselves and to do what is right. And I think that's really the change here. You know, it would have been extremely easy for Tulsi Gabbard to turn the other cheek, to sit in Congress as a vice chair of the Democrat Party and be in a prime position to take over a leadership position with the top dog being Nancy Pelosi, 80-something years old. And especially as a woman, a woman who served her country so bravely. The Democrats were obviously very eager to elevate Ms. Gabbard. And she decided that even though she was a presidential candidate, even though she was a ranking member of their party, even though she could have had a gravy train for the rest of her life, that the ideals by which the Democrat Party were standing for no longer stood for the America that she believed in or the values that she believed in herself. She could not stand to exist amongst people who hated the country that she had dedicated her life to in many different ways, whether it be through her political service or her military service. And that is what we need in this country. It would have been incredibly easy for Robert F. Kennedy to sit in obscurity and to say, yeah, I support Kamala Harris, and yeah, I agree with my family, thumbs up for me, just let it go. But he instead has dedicated his life to vaccine safety, to spreading awareness about disease, to spreading awareness about health. This guy has dedicated a tremendous amount of his life to improving the lives of ordinary Americans. And even when he had an easy option to sit on the gravy train and to just let things pass by and just let it go, he stood by his country and he did what was right. If you want to ask me where the MAGA movement has to go, what we have to believe in foundationally in order to maintain this movement, it's that we must do the right thing over what is maybe expedient, over maybe what is more lucrative, over maybe what some people wouldn't do. We have to believe in America. We have to move forward as a country and as a party in a way that includes everyone, and not to become like we were in the past of this country club Republican Party establishment. The days of Mitch McConnell, the days of Kevin McCarthy, the days of Paul Ryan and Newt Gingrich are over. The MAGA movement has taken over this party, and it's where we steer this MAGA movement that I believe will eventually steer the direction of our country. We look at the divide between the right and the left today. We look at how the right has really adapted a more anti-communist stance as they've embraced Trump. And the left has really embraced a pro-communist stance. And you examine some of the dollars that are flowing, especially on the left, from communist China to the left-wing Democrats in America, and some of the anti-communist Chinese money that's flowing through the right wing of America. And you examine the fact that we have people in D.C. calling for war with China. Billions of people, possibly killed in a war with China, and we have people in D.C. calling for that. I mean, it's truly unbelievable. And as we inch forward to establishment control, the one thorn in their side, the one man keeping both sides at bay, the one man stopping all of this from just going down like we saw during the Biden administration, where prices have gone through the roof, where China's asserted itself. The only person standing between us and oblivion is former President Donald Trump. And that is why he has been shot at. That is why they've attempted to kill him several times, and that's why he has to continue to fear that any moment may be his last, because the power structure of the world, not just the U.S. government, I'm talking about the entire world, the United Nations, the Germans, the Europeans, the British, the French, the Chinese, everybody in the world, the world order that wishes to supersede the United States, they are all against Donald Trump. They are all against you as Americans. And you know why they're against you? Because you want to live free. You know, the people in Europe, the people in Asia, they look at us Americans and they think that we are loud, we're obnoxious, and that we are only care about ourselves, when in actuality, they see our individuality as a threat, because in their countries, people have been silenced and beaten into submission, and those who do not obey are killed. We are one of the last countries. Though our individualism has been weakened, and there's more people that are like clones of each other than there's ever been before today, we are one of the last remaining countries which has individualism amongst its populace. It shines through with people like Roger Stone. It shines through with people like Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones. It shines through with people like Joe Rogan. It shines through in our art. It shines through in so many aspects of our life. And I think an embrace of that, whether it be people like Tulsi Gabbard, Donald Trump, Newt Gingrich, whoever, if you're on our side, if you accept the ideals that made America great in the first place, which are enshrined in our Bill of Rights, enshrined of our Constitution, then we welcome you. And to see the movement progress from 2016 to where it is now, I think is really one of the more tremendous things I've ever seen. And I never dreamed of a day when we would have a former vice chair of the Democrat Party endorsing Donald Trump for president, or better yet, a Kennedy endorsing Donald Trump for president. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another clip here that I want to roll. This is Vice President Kamala Harris. She was saying to reporters, this was earlier today, that she strongly disagrees with criticism of people based on who they vote for. This comes just hours after she accused all Trump supporters of being Nazis because of Madison Square Garden. Bizarre clip. Let's roll that Kamala Harris clip on the runway.
Listen, I think that, first of all, he clarified his comments, but let me be clear. I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. You heard my speech last night and continuously throughout my career. I believe that the work that I do is about representing all the people, whether they support me or not. And as President of the United States, I will be a president for all Americans, whether you vote for me or not. That is my responsibility, and that's the kind of work that I've done my entire career, and I take it very seriously.
Well, last night, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about the speech with Roger Stone. Kamala Harris delivered a speech in front of the White House on the ellipse. And, this was an interesting speech because, believe it or not, she stole more of President Trump's policies. Kamala Harris stole Trump's tax on tips policy. That's just a fact. She didn't come up with it. President Trump came up with it, and she stole it because she saw that it was doing well and it was popular. It's a brilliant idea, to be honest with you. And I think, why should the government be able to tax people's tips in the first place? I think it's ridiculous. You get the cash, and President Trump clearly said, they might not know about the cash, but it's an important point. People that work in the service industry, the last thing you want to do is be taking the money that they make in tips and taxing. I mean, that's horrible. And Kamala Harris stumbled upon this idea after President Trump really asserted it. She also, last night, is now claiming that if you elect her in 2024, although she's overseen the worst southern border that we've ever seen in the history of the United States, that she will close the border. And she's now going to deport people who came here illegally. So Kamala Harris, the only thing she didn't say was that she was going to build a wall. I mean, she was basically this close to word for word copying Trump's immigration policy. Let's roll that clip of her claiming that she's going to deport illegal immigrants and just ask a simple question. When are you going to start doing this? Because it's my understanding you're vice president now and you could start now, but you're not doing that. So what the hell is this? I mean, let's roll that clip.
Politicians have got to stop treating immigration as an issue to scare up votes in an election, and instead treat it as the serious challenge that it is, that we must finally come together to solve. I will work with Democrats and Republicans to sign into law the border security bill that Donald Trump killed. When I was Attorney General of a border state, I saw the chaos and violence caused by transnational criminal organizations that I took on. And when I am president, we will quickly remove those who arrive here unlawfully, prosecute the cartels, and give Border Patrol the support they so desperately need. At the same time, we must acknowledge we are a nation of immigrants. And I will work with Congress to pass immigration reform, including an earned path to citizenship for hardworking immigrants like farm workers and our dreamers.
And there you have it, folks. Just a disgusting display from Kamala Harris last night. We have one more clip of her delivering that speech last night where she makes really a ridiculous statement. I want to be very clear right now. The most damaging thing that President Biden has done to the United States is our standing in foreign policy. President Biden has allowed China to aggressively seek alliances across the country. Prime example, Afghanistan, just weeks after the United States had their failed exit and 13 Marines died, and President Biden was checking his watch during the dignified transfer, China was in our airport in Afghanistan. They had already taken it over in Kabul. And that was, by the way, the closest U.S. airbase to mainland China in the entire world. It was also a massive airbase because the United States had been there for many years and they had just built it up over time. The Chinese now own that, and the Chinese also have a massive deal with Afghanistan to get the rare earth minerals that Afghanistan is known for. So your batteries, your iPhones, your laptops, your computers, all of them use these things called rare earth minerals, which just so happen to be the most abundant in Afghanistan. President Trump has talked about this for years. We would have people fighting on one hill, and on the other hill, the Chinese are mining these rare earth minerals that they then sell back to us. So as soon as we left Afghanistan, China comes in, they got a deal. China's got another deal with Iran, where Iran is now the top importer of oil to China. So China gets more oil from Iran than any other country in the entire world. That has happened under Joe Biden because Biden and Harris have lifted the sanctions that the U.S. had on Iranian oil exports, as well as working with the United Nations in order to lift broader sanctions on Iranian exports. So they're making upwards of $100 billion a year now on their oil trade alone, just because of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the sanctions being lifted. This has happened just over the last 4 years. There were no Iranian oil exports under President Trump. He had banned them. They have allowed this to happen. If you look at the situation in Ukraine, that did not get worse until President Biden and Kamala Harris took office. That was when Vladimir Putin decided he was going to push into Ukraine. It wasn't until Vice President Kamala Harris and President Biden took over that Hamas launched the deadliest attack on Israeli soil we've seen in some time, killing over 1,000 Israeli civilians. This is what the leadership of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden has resulted in: death, destruction, and dismay. We have a clip from last night where Kamala Harris had the audacity to say that Trump is an easy mark and that he would be taken advantage of by foreign leaders. As I just laid out for you folks, nobody in this world has been worse or has ever been worse for the United States foreign policy standing than Joe Biden and, more importantly, Kamala Harris. Let's roll this clip of the incompetent vice president criticizing Trump for something she herself has failed on miserably.
As Commander-in-Chief, I will make sure America has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has shown his contempt for our nation's heroes, calls them suckers and losers, called a 4-star Marine general a, quote, lowlife. I will always honor, never denigrate, the service and sacrifice of our troops and their families, and fulfill our sacred obligation to care for them. I will strengthen, not surrender, America's global leadership. And I will stand with our friends because I know that our alliances keep American people safe and make America stronger and more secure. Look, world leaders think that Donald Trump is an easy mark, easy to manipulate with flattery or favor. And you can believe that autocrats like Putin and Kim Jong-un are rooting for him in this election. I will always uphold our security, advance our national interest, and ensure that the United States of America remains, as we must forever be, a champion of liberty around the world.
Well, folks, just before we get off the speech, I want to make this point because it's important. We have a tweet that I want to show. This is Kamala Harris's Twitter, Kamala HQ. They tweeted out claiming that 75,000 people were at this Kamala Harris rally. We have a video. We'll play it now.
Thank you, everyone. So listen.
I want you to remember now the inauguration of former President Donald Trump, where Donald Trump claimed that there were more people at his inauguration than any inauguration ever. That might not have been true. Now, Trump, he loves to exaggerate things. He loves to put hyperbole on things. But this was a bickering fight between him and the media for a good 3 months into his presidency, where they'd say, oh, actually, sir, you didn't have the biggest crowd. The biggest fuss was made over whether he had the biggest crowd or not. They picked at that and picked at that and picked at that and said that was a prime example of how he's such a narcissist and egoist. There's not 75,000 people in this club. They're claiming that 75,000 people attended this speech. That is not 75,000 people. It's not even close to 75,000 people. In fact, there's been reports that there was only about 30,000 people there at maximum. I mean, we're talking max here, folks. And those people, we've seen footage from certain people on the ground that showed that they were bussed in. So you have people that were artificially put there in the first place. They lie about the crowd size. And I only bring up Trump and the inauguration because there's such a disparity in how they cover these things. Kamala Harris is allowed to exaggerate her crowd size by 2 times at least. At a bare minimum, she's exaggerating by 2 times. There's probably more than that. Donald Trump can't say one thing wrong or the media will hit him over it for 3 years. He can't even have a comedian at his rally make a joke without them thinking or acting as if, I shouldn't say thinking because they know what they're doing is lying, acting as if he was talking about some kind of policy prescription. No, of course Donald Trump doesn't think Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage. How ridiculous do you have to be to take that at face value and say, oh wow, that's a really awful statement? Yeah, if that was said at a political rally, there would probably be some eyebrows raised by a politician, not by a comedian. It's like saying, oh my God, This guy is singing about sex at a rally. He's playing a song. No, it's a song. He's playing a song, and it's just like they take things so out of context. They are so obsessed with taking things out of context. Yet when they have a guy like Tim Walz, who is now confirmed, goes to China 33 times as part of like a chaperone program where he's introducing young men and women to the communist Chinese. Bizarre. That doesn't get covered. The fact that Tim Walz lied about being at Tiananmen Square for the anniversary, total lie. It just didn't happen. He doesn't get hit for that. Tim Walz being a member of the Armed Services Committee in the House, claiming he has PTSD from service he never freaking went on, and they don't even cover it. The guy said he carried weapons of war in Afghanistan. He claimed that he had PTSD as a member of the House Armed Services Committee, and they don't do anything about it. He's allowed to say whatever he wants. They do whatever they want. Folks, this is the most egregious media-flamed campaign I've ever seen. As I've said time and time again, Kamala Harris didn't get one single vote. She didn't receive one single vote, ladies and gentlemen. And the idea that we as Americans are being forced to choose between one candidate who half the country voted for in the primary and another candidate who nobody has voted for, I think needs to call into question the sincerity of our election systems. Are we really getting the truth here? And what about the political activity, the behind the scenes political activity of former President Barack Obama, who I believe, many others believe, the evidence spells out, had everything to do with the removal of former President Joe Biden as the nominee in this year? Where are the investigations into the communications, the activity of former President Barack Obama? We need to know who he's communicating with. We need to know how he's pulling the strings, and we need to stop it, because this is not a country ruled by kings. Barack Obama, you will never be a king. America will never have a king. We could have had one. His name was George Washington, and he said no. And we follow by that standard to this day. You will never be king of the United States. It doesn't matter how many fake people like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden you put up. You will meet your end, Barack Obama. You will meet your end. And you will have to face your creator one day, and you'll have to explain why you destroyed the United States of America. Because that guy ruined race relations in this country. That guy stoked racist hatred across the country, and he made people like me, who was a little kid at the time in public schools, they made people like me the enemy for no reason other than political expediency. They turned Americans on each other over their race. They told people that white Americans were responsible for all the problems in our country, and they did that because it was politically expedient for them. And that is evil. It's disgusting. And the era of Barack Obama, I believe, will go down as one of the most destructive political eras, not just in the history of the United States, but in the world political history. Barack Obama has almost destroyed the United States of America. But we will continue to fight for the United States as long as we can. And that's what this Stone Zone is all about, folks. I want to encourage you to support us here at the Stone Zone by going to mypillow.com and using promo code STONE. Now, when you do that, you're going to get the best bath towels. You're going to get the best sheets. You're going to get the best pillow. You're going to get the best items you could possibly ask for. And you're going to help us stay afloat here on the Stone Zone with the promo code, because part of your order will actually go to keep the lights on. It'll go to Roger and Nydia to help them kind of defend themselves from the endless attacks by the left wing who seek to destroy them and all they stand for. So I want to encourage you to do that. I want to encourage you to follow us on Rumble. Go to rumble.com/RogerStone. We're so excited. We have 51,000 followers there. We started in January. I remember when I first signed on, we had just under 10,000. So the idea, we've gone that far, ladies and gentlemen. We're so happy about it. Thank you. Please don't forget, share the show. Be sure to show your loved ones. This is the spot to get all the best political news with Roger and I. We love being here. We love talking to you folks, and we love our audience. So I want to thank you personally for sticking with me on this Wednesday. I want to encourage you, hit that like button, leave us a comment, and share this video. And we will be back in the Stone Zone tomorrow with the legendary Roger Stone. Again, my name is Troy Smith. I want to thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?